Chapter 72-42. Du Bing and Yang Jiong also looked embarrassed. Wasn't it a little too late for them to say this now? Huang Tiangue didn't say anything. He just looked at Yuan Gang with a slightly cold gaze. The latter felt a chill in his heart. He had already cursed Di Baichen and Du Bing 1,000 times in his heart. However, given the current situation, all they could do now was try their best to make up for it. How many blood spirit stones do you have on you? Yuan Gang's expression was extremely ugly. With the money he had on hand, it wouldn't be a problem for him to have a meal at Returning Chin restaurant. However, it was obviously not enough to order that sky-high price of fruits. Du Bing and Yang Jiong's faces fell when they heard this. This wasn't good news. However, they had no choice but to hand over all the money they had on them. Yuan Gang did the math and his expression was still ugly. Even if the three of them combined their wealth, it still wouldn't be enough. I'm afraid Yuan Gang is in trouble now. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. Although Huang Tiangue may have seen through our plan to drive a wedge between them, he's bound to be unhappy. In addition, Yuan Gang's purse is going to be in trouble. After understanding the situation in the account books, they already had a certain understanding of the income of each steward. Although Yuan Gang had kept a lot for himself, he should have given a lot to Huang Tiangue each time. In addition, this guy usually liked to enjoy himself. It was unlikely that he was very rich. There'll be a good show later. Di Baichen's lips curved slightly. His handsome face was as enchanting as a demon's. He picked up some food and placed it in Bailey Hongzhuang's bowl. Eat to fill your stomach first. We'll go to Returning Chin restaurant later. Returning Chin restaurant. Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly startled. Are we going tonight? They had specially come to Rutaisi restaurant because of what they had said earlier. If they went to Returning Chin restaurant later, it would be tantamount to letting Huang Tiangue know that they were deliberately looking for trouble. Di Baichen nodded. Today's good show has already played out to this point. Wouldn't it be a pity if we don't add something? What did you do behind my back? I was just greeting Gong Jun. Bailey Hongzhuang immediately understood. When did you tell Gong Jun? I had already guessed that this would happen, so I mentioned it to Gong Jun a few days ago. I think he will act according to the situation. Smart. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled brightly. Gong Jun had stayed in the mine before, so he was no stranger to Yuan Gang. Moreover, they should be very familiar with this kind of thing. So, your plan is to make them unable to pay? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. This way, not only will Yuan Gang be embarrassed, Huang Tiangue will also be very angry. As a consul, he was considered a respectable figure. If he lost face at this time, one could imagine the anger in his heart. Indeed. Di Baichen nodded. As long as we go in at the right time and resolve this awkwardness, Huang Tiangue's impression of us will be much better. Unknowingly, they would have the upper hand. So, there will be a good show to watch later. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Returning Chin restaurant. Yuan Gang looked at the dishes that Huang Tiangue ordered, and his heart kept bleeding. Huang Tiangue was obviously a little annoyed, so when he ordered, he did not consider Yuan Gang's situation. He only felt that after working together for so long, Yuan Gang had slacked off a lot. Chapter 72-43. Perhaps Ji Chuan's appearance was an opportunity. For a long time he had let Yuan Gang dominate the mine and everyone was used to it. Over time Yuan Gang also seemed to be fearless. Now he even dared to fool him on such matters. If this continued, this fellow might not even be afraid of him in the future. Yang Jiong, you go back and get the money first. We will stall for time here. You must be fast. Yuan Gang said in a deep voice. If he couldn't even pay up here today, then he would really become a joke in the future. Most importantly, it was fine if he lost face, but if the consul lost face as well, he would really be done for. Brother Yuan, the price of this fruit is really too high. Who am I going to borrow money from when I go back? I'll borrow it from those I'm more familiar with. I'll return it to them after a while. Yang Jiong looked hesitant. He already knew that the price of this fruit was sky high, but when he saw it today he was really scared silly. This price, who could afford it? Speaking of which, they were unlucky. The price of this fruit was already very high, and today they happened to encounter some fruit of the highest quality, so the price was even higher. Now that the consul had already ordered, they could only bite the bullet and sit there. I'll go right away. Go as fast as you can. Don't waste any time. After finding a reason, Yang Jiong left the Returning Chin restaurant. In his heart, he had already categorized this restaurant as a shady restaurant. It was simply terrifying. When Gong Jun saw Yuan Gang scratching his head, he couldn't help but laugh in his heart. You dare to offend my boss? See if I don't play you to death today. After ordering, Huang Tiangue was a little curious. What kind of fruit was worthy of such a price? If this fruit was not extraordinary, Imperial Returning Tower would have been finished long ago. Yuan Gang, what's wrong with you? Huang Tiangue said slowly when he noticed Yuan Gang's awkward expression. Yuan Gang immediately smiled. It's nothing. I just feel that it's rare for you to come here. I hope you won't be disappointed. I'll try the fruits in this shop. If it's really a rare treasure, I'll go back and tell the other consuls. I don't think it will disappoint you. I've heard from others that it is indeed not bad. Soon the fruits were served. Looking at the fruits on the plate, Huang Tiangue and the others were stunned. That was because the fruit was sparkling and translucent. At a glance, one could tell that it was different from ordinary fruits. Just smelling the rich fragrance made people want to take a bite. At this moment, even if they didn't eat it, they already knew in their hearts that this was definitely something good. Did you see that? That table ordered special fruits. It said that the price of the fruit today is very high. I didn't expect that someone would order it. I'm afraid this table of people is not simple. Although the price is very high, everyone who has tried it said that the taste is very good. I don't think you will be disappointed. Noticing the envious gazes around him, Huang Tiangue's mood improved a lot. Consul, do you want to try it? Yuan Gang stared at the fruit. This was definitely a heavenly treasure. Even smelling it was a pleasure. Huang Tiangue picked up the fruit. In fact, he was a little reluctant to part with it. If possible, he really wanted to bring the fruit back first. However, in the current situation, he could only eat it directly. Chapter 72-44. A rich aroma spread in his mouth, and pure origin energy spread to his limbs and bones. At that moment, he felt as if his entire body was light and could float. Huang Tiangue didn't say anything, just savoring this indescribable feeling. Soon the entire fruit was eaten by him. He closed his eyes and exhaled a breath of turbid air. He felt refreshed. He was almost certain that after eating this fruit, some of the small problems that had gathered in his body had been cleared up. Such pure elemental energy was actually obtained from a fruit. It was simply unbelievable. Yuan Gang and Du Bing unconsciously licked their lips, their eyes filled with curiosity. Consul, how does it taste? It's indeed a well-deserved reputation, Huang Tiangue praised. Hearing this, Yuan Gang was also relieved. Everyone who had tasted this fruit said that it was worth it, but the price was too high. Fortunately, the consul was very satisfied. Presumably, most of his previous unhappiness had dissipated. The other dishes began to be served, but Huang Tiangue's mind was completely focused on the fruit. He couldn't help but feel a little absent-minded. He sized up this returning imperial restaurant. Although he didn't know what kind of person this boss was, to be able to get this kind of fruit, he definitely wasn't a simple person. Gong Jun had been using the corner of his eye to observe the movements here. After seeing Huang Tiangue's dispirited appearance, a faint smile appeared in his eyes. It's about time, dear customer. Gong Jun walked over with a smile. What do you think of our store's signature fruit? After noticing Gong Jun, Huang Tiangue also straightened his expression and said, You really live up to your reputation. You've broadened my horizons. To be honest, today's special grade fruit is also the first time our store is selling it. This fruit can increase the amount of elemental energy compared to other fruits. When you go back and circulate your cultivation method, you will discover even more benefits. I see. Since you are the first customer to order a special grade fruit, we can provide a special dish today. Are you interested in learning about it? Go ahead, Huang Tiangue said with interest. His mind was still filled with the original fruit. If he had enough money on hand, he could buy a few more. It would be safer than eating pills. Our store has researched a few new dishes that will fuse the essence of the fruit into the dishes. This way, the dishes will also be able to increase one's elemental energy. The taste is excellent, and the price is slightly cheaper than the fruit. What do you think, dear customer? Huang Tiangue's eyes lit up. He was already looking forward to it. Now that he had such an opportunity, he was even happier. Alright, let's do that. Yuan Gang's heart skipped a beat when he heard this. He felt that it was all over. Just the fruits alone were already too much for him to bear. Now there were these dishes as well. He was afraid that he wouldn't even be able to walk out of this store today. Looking at Huang Tiangue's expectant look, he could only suppress all his depression. He wondered if he could find an opportunity to talk to the shopkeeper about the credit later. Gong Jun, you're really something. Ziren looked at Gong Jun in admiration. He felt that Yuan Gang was really unlucky. Chapter 72-46. They had never tried such a unique taste before. After the initial amazement, the three of them began to gorge themselves uncontrollably. Because it was so delicious they didn't have time to talk at all. They even felt that if they ate slower, the food would be finished by others. The cultivators at the other tables were actually very curious about whether the food was delicious or not, but after seeing the three of them pouncing on the food like wolves, they knew that the food would not disappoint them. They were even more curious and couldn't wait for tomorrow to come quickly. In the blink of an eye, the food on the table had been swept clean by the three of them. Yuan Gang looked at the unusually clean dishes and remembered that Yang Jiong hadn't come back yet. They didn't have enough money to pay the bill. Du Bing's heart also skipped a beat. He ate too happily just now and completely forgot about this. What should we do now? Du Bing couldn't help but look at Yuan Gang. If they left earlier, they would have to face the dilemma of not having enough money to pay the bill. Yuan Gang was also very conflicted, but after noticing Huang Tinggui's unsatisfied expression, he had already made a decision in his heart. Consul, do you want to eat more? Yang Jiong hasn't come back yet. Yuan Gang smiled. Huang Tiangui was already unsatisfied. Now that he heard Yuan Gang take the initiative to mention this, he immediately went with the flow and said, "Okay." After seeing this scene, Du Bing on the side couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat for Yuan Gang. Their current situation was bad enough. Even if Yang Jiong borrowed money back, they might not be able to afford this meal. If they ordered other dishes now, the scene later. He simply didn't dare to imagine. This kid actually dares to order? Ziren frowned slightly. Could it be that Beichen's information is wrong and this kid is actually very rich? Impossible. Gong Jun was a little hesitant. According to his understanding of the store during this period of time, although the manager of the mine usually lived quite well, it was actually not enough for such expenses. On this point he had also gotten a very certain answer from the boss. This situation was indeed a bit strange. However, when he noticed Yuan Gang looking out from time to time, he already understood in his heart. I'm afraid this kid is in a terrible fix right now and is looking for someone to save him. Gong Jun sneered, I'm not afraid of him ordering, I'm just afraid that he won't order. After a while, when that guy comes back, you can go and inform the boss. Ziren nodded. No problem. Du Bing watched in trepidation as Huang Tiangui ordered a few more dishes. He felt like his heart was bleeding, but even he had to admit that these dishes were really delicious. He didn't feel full at all. When the dishes were served again, Yuan Gang and Du Bing learned from their experience. They didn't dare to eat too much. They just slowly delayed the time. Huang Tiangui continued to eat by himself. He felt that he would have to come here more often in the future to eat such delicacies. Du Bing's face was full of desire. He was worried and satisfied at the same time. If he hadn't accompanied the consul here today, he didn't know when he would have the opportunity to taste this place. After a long wait, Yang Jiong finally returned. After seeing Yang Jiong return, Yuan Gang and Du Bing both breathed a sigh of relief. At least there was hope. How was it? Yuan Gang asked. Yang Jiong nodded slightly, indicating that there was no problem. Yuan Gang and Du Bing were relieved. End of chapter. Chapter 7247. Brother Yuan, I've already collected enough money for the special fruit. Yang Jiong smiled. The price of a single fruit was too shocking. He had kept it in mind ever since he saw the price. When he returned, he immediately found everyone and borrowed their blood spirit stones. Their biggest problem was the special fruit. As long as they collected the money, the other dishes would not be a problem. However, when he finished speaking, he suddenly noticed that Yuan Gang and Du Bing's gazes were somewhat unusual. He immediately asked, What's wrong? Is there something wrong? Did you only borrow money for the fruit? Yuan Gang's face darkened. Yang Jiong nodded subconsciously. Yes. Du Bing swallowed a mouthful of saliva. The dishes they ordered were not ordinary dishes. The total price of these dishes must be very frightening. What happened? Yang Jiong unconsciously felt guilty. Everything was fine before he left. There was no problem. Brother Yuan, what should we do now? Du Bing looked at Yuan Gang worriedly. She had lost all her appetite. If they could not pay here, they would really be done for. Yuan Gang secretly glanced at Huang Tiangui, who was in a good mood, and then quietly looked at the shopkeeper. After the interaction just now, he felt that the shopkeeper was not a difficult person to get along with. As long as he talked nicely, there might be a possibility of him buying on credit. Thinking of this, Yuan Gang said that he had to go to the toilet and took the opportunity to leave. He then found Gong Jun. As soon as he saw Yuan Gang, Gong Jun already knew what was going on. At the same time, when Xiren's figure disappeared from the returning Qin restaurant. "Shopkeeper, I wonder if I can discuss something with you?" Yuan Gang braced himself and asked. He had no other choice now. "What is it?" Gong Jun said with a smile. "Aside from buying on credit, everything else is negotiable." He reached out and pointed at the signboard. Yuan Gang looked and found that the words "no credit" were written on it. In an instant, his face became even uglier. The shopkeeper's words seemed to have directly blocked what he wanted to say. "Guest, what do you want to discuss?" Gong Jun pretended not to know with a concerned look on his face. "Oh, actually, I just want to talk to the shopkeeper about the credit," Yuan Gang said hesitantly. His voice was extremely soft, and his head was also very low. It was clear that this matter also made him feel extremely embarrassed. Thinking about how he was able to cover the sky with one hand in the mine, now he actually had to pay on credit in a restaurant. If word got out, he wouldn't be able to survive in the future. As soon as these words came out, Gong Jun's face showed a strong look of surprise. Before he had time to speak, the attendant on the side couldn't help but say in astonishment, "What? You want to buy on credit?" Perhaps because he was too surprised, the waiter unconsciously raised his voice and was immediately heard by many people. Originally, Yuan Gang's table was very eye-catching because not only did they order expensive fruits, but they also tried the new dishes first. Everyone was very envious. However, when everyone heard that these guys were prepared to pay on credit, they were dumbfounded. "Are you kidding? This group of people looks dignified, but they came here and directly ordered the most expensive fruits. In the end, they actually want to pay on credit. Isn't this a joke? This is really the first time I've met such people. If they don't have the money, then don't order. At this point, they actually want to pay on credit. Aren't they too shameless?" End of chapter. Chapter 72-48. That's right. What's the point of pretending if you don't have money? Don't you know that returning star restaurant never allows credit? All the envy turned into disdain at this moment. Everyone looked at Huang Tiangue and company as if they were watching a joke. It was clear that after today these people were going to become famous. Yang Jiong and Du Bing didn't expect such a situation to happen. They were dumbfounded. Didn't Brother Yuan say that he wanted to discuss it with the shopkeeper? Even if the discussion didn't work out, there was no need to be so high profile. They could have bought more time, or Brother Yuan could have left first and they could have stayed until closing time. At least the impact would have been smaller. However, now that it was brought up in front of everyone, they couldn't wait to find a hole in the ground to hide in. Huang Tiangue didn't expect Yuan Gang to do things like this. He knew that this meal was expensive, but with Yuan Gang's position in the mine, as long as he used his brain, he would be able to solve all this. He didn't expect this guy to be so stupid that he couldn't even handle this kind of thing. Especially when the surrounding gazes made him feel as if there was a thorn in his back, his old face blushed. "Yuan Gang." Huang Tiangue's voice rang out. "What are you doing?" Yuan Gang's face was already pale. He glared fiercely at the waiter and Gong Jun skillfully apologized. "Sir, I'm really sorry. I didn't teach him well." Yuan Gang didn't say anything. The anger in his heart was already rising, but the current situation wasn't the time for him to vent his anger. "Console I, trash," Huang Tiangue angrily rebuked. Gong Jun hurriedly ran out with an apologetic expression. "I'm really sorry. Our restaurant never allows credit. This has been written down long ago." Just now, the waiter was too surprised to control himself. "I apologize to everyone. This kind of thing will never happen again. How about I give you a discount on this meal?" Gong Jun was extremely polite. Everyone understood that Gong Jun didn't deliberately let everyone know about this matter. It was just because the waiter was careless. As the shopkeeper, he handled it very well. For a moment, everyone was standing on the side of the returning star tower. The returning star tower had already done its utmost benevolence. This kind of freeloader should be spurned by others. "Manager, I don't want to dine and dash I." Yuan Gang's expression was complicated. He wished that someone could knock him out with a stick so that he wouldn't have to face such an awkward situation. However, his attitude made everyone look down on him even more. If you don't want to dine and dash, then you want to pay on credit? It's not easy for them to open a shop. If all the customers they meet are like this, then how can Qin returning restaurant continue to operate? This kind of person is really shameless. He can even say such words in such a dignified manner. It's really admirable. His words stabbed at Yuan Gang's spine. His hands unconsciously clenched into fists, but he was helpless in front of the console. Huang Tiangue coldly glanced at Yuan Gang, Manager, this meal is on me. A voice as warm as the sea came from the door. Then, everyone saw two figures slowly walk in, and these words came from the man in the lead. Huang Tiangue and the others looked back in surprise. After seeing that it was Ji Chuan and Gu Jian, the lines on Huang Tiangue's face softened. Yuan Gang's hair stood on end. His face instantly turned darker than the bottom of a pot. Chapter 72-49. Everyone looked curiously at the two people who had just walked in. They didn't know where these two people came from. One had to know that this meal was really expensive. The other party casually said that he was going to treat them. That wasn't an ordinary kind of generosity. Ji Chuan, now is not the time for you to stand out. Yuan Gang said coldly. When Di Baichen passed by, he said in a voice that only the two of them could hear, "Be careful or you won't even know how you die." Di Baichen directly passed by Yuan Gang and walked in front of Huang Tiangue, his face filled with a spring breeze smile. "It's my honor to be able to treat Consul to a meal." Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled and said, "Steward Yuan, you have to bring enough money to treat people to a meal. Otherwise, not only will you lose face but you will also implicate others. I vaguely remember that last time when we had a meal, Steward Yuan emphasized that you can't eat and dash. How did the situation completely change when it came to you?" As soon as these words came out, Yuan Gang's face couldn't be any darker. The last time he was at Rutasi brothel, it was because of this incident that made him lose face. As a result, he did not go to Rutasi brothel for a while. Today, such a thing happened at returning Imperial brothel. His reputation would really be tarnished in the future. When this scene fell into the eyes of others, they only felt that Yuan Gang was really shameless. It was fine if he did such a thing, but he actually blamed others. His face was thicker than the city wall. Gu Jian. Di Baichen deliberately reprimanded, "It's rare for Steward Yuan to give us a chance, otherwise we wouldn't have been able to invite Consul Huang. It seems that this consul is not simple. He paid such a high price to treat him to a meal, but this guy is really too disgraceful. He doesn't have money but he still wants to pretend to be rich. Now things are even worse. A brain is a good thing but unfortunately this guy doesn't have one." Du Bing and Yang Jiong wanted to explain something, but in the current situation no matter what they said it would be useless. Words were too weak and no one would believe them. Huang Tiangue originally didn't want people to mix him and Yuan Gang together. Now, after a few words from Di Baichen, everyone understood that he wasn't such a person. His mood suddenly improved a lot, and he felt that Ji Chuan had become more pleasing to the eye. Originally, between Yuan Gang and Ji Chuan, he preferred Yuan Gang because they had been working together for so many years. After this incident, he realized that Ji Chuan was a promising talent. At least, his ability to deal with matters was much better than Yuan Gang's. "Well said now, but whether or not you'll be able to pay up later is another matter." Du Bing spat inwardly. They had worked so hard to develop things to this point, but this hateful guy actually came to steal all of their gains. One could imagine the anger in her heart. "I hope so." Yang Jiong was also staring at Di Baichen and Bailey Hongzhuang. The two of them were saying nice things now. Perhaps they didn't even realize how expensive this meal was. If these two guys also made a fool of themselves, then there was still room to turn things around. At this time, Bailey Hongzhuang had already walked to the counter. Gong Jun proudly winked at Bailey Hongzhuang. "Sister-in-law, I did a good job, right?" "Very good." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Yuan Gang and the other two were definitely going to suffer a loss today. "Hehe, I won't let them die." Gong Jun also understood Huang Tiangue's identity. Once this guy was dealt with, boss and the others would have a much easier time in the mine. Chapter 72-50. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the price on the bill and understood why Yuan Gang and the others were in such a predicament. The price was much higher than she had expected. It could be seen that Gong Jun had spared no effort to cheat them. Gong Jun took the Chengquan bag handed over by Bailey Hongzhuang. He glanced at it and found that it was empty. His face was still filled with a satisfied smile as he said respectfully, "Thank you, dear customer." After the others noticed Gong Jun's reaction, they knew that Bailey Hongzhuang had really paid the bill. They couldn't help but feel guilty. However, this scene was like a slap to their faces. "It's over." Du Bing's heart thumped. Didn't this mean that they didn't even have a chance to turn things around? "Brother Yuan, we can't let them beat us. Otherwise we'll be finished in the future." Yang Jiong whispered. They and Ji Chuan had long been sworn enemies. If the consul was coaxed by them, with Ji Chuan's strength and the consul's care, they wouldn't be a match. "I know." Yuan Gang's face was gloomy. Countless thoughts flashed through his mind. He had to do something. He couldn't let things continue like this. Di Baichen and Huang Tiangue were chatting happily. After this incident, Huang Qinggui's attitude became much better and he was willing to communicate with him. I didn't know that the mine had such a talent like you before. Huang Tiangue chuckled. This one has always admired the consul, but I didn't have the chance. I wonder if the consul can do me the honor tomorrow? Huang Tiangue glanced at the returning Qin building and nodded, okay. Yuan Gang's heart tightened. He had always been wary of Ji Chuan and didn't give him a chance to contact the consul. Now that the consul had agreed with this guy's ability, things might change tomorrow. Consul, you mustn't believe this kid. Yuan Gang hurriedly said, he's just a steward. If he can afford such a price, he must be thinking of ways to embezzle it. This kind of person is the vermin of our mine. He must be severely punished. That's right, they must be stuffing their own pockets. Otherwise, with the salary of a manager, this is simply not enough. Du Bing added. Bailey Hongzhuang sneered, what a joke, Steward Yuan. We are all stewards. Why can you come here but we can't? We're different from you. You usually indulge yourself in wine and women, and you're a frequent customer of all the restaurants. We don't usually have fun, but we're lucky enough to treat you to a meal. Can't we do that? Don't forget, we are the ones who handed over the spirit-devouring stones this time. If Steward Yuan has evidence, you can take it out. We won't accept this baseless slander. His words were reasonable, and they directly blocked all of Yuan Gang's words. He really didn't have any evidence. During this period of time, he had spent a lot of effort investigating, but he still couldn't find any clues. Without evidence, all the accusations were meaningless. Slander can't be said casually. Huang Qinggui's voice also had a trace of reprimand. He also felt that Di Baichen's extravagance was unbelievable, but after Gu Jian's explanation he felt that it might not be impossible. He knew in his heart how comfortable Yuan Gang usually was. Maybe it was because he had been too extravagant recently. On the contrary, Ji Chuan and the others might have been preparing for a long time. End of chapter. Chapter 7251. Hearing Huang Qinggui's words, Yuan Gang could only shut his mouth with a gloomy face. Before they found any evidence, it was useless to say anything now. Instead, it would only make the consul even more unhappy. In short, they were done for today. When Ziran returned and saw this scene, he immediately raised his eyebrows proudly. This kid wants to go against Baichen. Isn't that courting death? Boss, isn't it easy to play him to death? Gong Jun chuckled. It was only because Boss was in a good mood that he played this trick. Otherwise he would have directly killed this guy. There was nothing he could do. Looks like your new dish is pretty good? Noticing that all the dishes on the table had been eaten, Ziran understood what had happened. Of course. Don't think that I only know how to open the Immortal Treasure Pavilion. I have no problem opening other shops. Gong Jun chuckled. If you want to compete with my boss in terms of purse, then you are simply looking down on me. It's good to earn more money. The crossing immortal domain is quite big. We've searched everywhere but there's no sign of Xiao Sou. I think we should find a few reliable people to go to other places to gather information. Ziran stopped joking. He knew how important the secret key was to Baichen. Moreover, Xiao Sou kept causing trouble from time to time. If he didn't solve it, he wouldn't be at ease. When Gong Jun saw that Ziran was so considerate of Di Baichen, the look in his eyes changed a little. He then smiled and said, "Don't worry, I'm already looking for someone. Boss's business is my business." He had recently learned about Xiao Sou's situation from Ziran and the others. Therefore he had to find a reliable person. He couldn't search for Xiao Sou openly. Otherwise Xiao Sou would definitely go into hiding. He couldn't find it in the upper realm. If he couldn't find it in the crossing immortal domain, then Boss would really have a headache. On the way back, Di Baichen and Huang Tiangue appeared to be much closer to Huang Tiangue. On the other hand, Yuan Gang and the other two remained silent with gloomy faces. When the group of people returned to the mine, the stewards who noticed them were all dumbfounded. What did they see? At this moment, the person who was happily chatting with the consul was actually Ji Chuan. Yuan Gang and the others who had left in high spirits were now returning dejectedly. Just by looking at their expressions, one could tell that something very unpleasant must have happened. Otherwise they wouldn't be like this. I think the sky is really going to change. When have I ever seen Yuan Gang and the others so dejected before? I'm really curious as to how Ji Chuan and the others managed to do it. We were almost finished just now. I heard that Yang Jiong came back just now and borrowed a lot of money. I don't know if it has anything to do with this. Zhou Su was worried about tomorrow's matter. He always felt that Ji Chuan wasn't a person who was eloquent, and Gu Jian was perhaps too eloquent. He didn't know if these two people could win the consul's favor. How could the relationship that had been established for so many years be broken so easily? However, when he heard the voice coming from the front, a strong sense of surprise appeared in his eyes. He immediately pulled Lei Jun and walked forward. You say, did I hear it wrong? No matter how I look at it, this situation sounds a little unbelievable. Lei Jun's expression wasn't much better. Previously, he clearly said that these two people didn't have any plans today. Why did they suddenly get together with the consul? Chapter 7252. When the two arrived, they saw Ji Chuan and the consul walking in the front, while Yuan Gang and his party walked behind them with an unhappy face. Don't mention how depressed they were. Seeing this scene, the two couldn't help but look at each other and subconsciously rub their eyes. I'm sure I didn't see it wrong. What are you talking about? Lei Jun was speechless. This guy was too shocked and even spoke incoherently. Aren't you surprised? Zhou Su's face unconsciously raised a smile. I think I should be able to sleep well tonight. Lei Jun smiled and nodded. I guess that they had a plan, but this speed is much faster than we thought. When they come back, we have to ask them how they did it. Zhou Su's face was proud. It's been so long, but this is the first time I've seen Yuan Gang with such an expression. When Di Beichen and the consul sent Huang Tianggui back to the tent, they came back. As soon as they closed the tent, the two saw Zhou Su and the consul as expected. You're fast enough. Bailey Hongzhuang went to the table, poured a cup of tea and sat down casually. Zhou Su couldn't wait to greet them. Tell me what happened just now. Isn't this too amazing? Nothing, it's just that Yuan Gang fell into the pit himself, and then we took advantage of it. Bailey Hongzhuang spread out her hands and said. After the two understood the general process, Zhou Su couldn't help but say, Yuan Gang didn't fall into the pit himself, but you dug a pit for him to jump in. In that case, Yuan Gang had no other choice but to make this choice. So, I can only say that this guy's luck is bad. But you're really amazing. Even Yuan Gang couldn't afford that meal, but you can afford it? Zhou Su raised his eyebrows. How much did you earn in the end? Come on. Bailey Hongzhuang pushed Zhou Su's head to the side. We've always been very frugal. If you can go out a few times a month, maybe you'll have money. Zhou Su smiled awkwardly. What he said made sense. The next day, Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang invited the consul out as per their agreement. Huang Tianggui had not had enough of the food at returning Qin restaurant. He would never get tired of that kind of delicious food no matter how many times he ate it. Therefore, he was in high spirits when he left with the two of them. Yuan Gang looked at the backs of the three of them as they left. His expression was extremely ugly. With a sweep of his gaze, he noticed that the others were looking at him as if they were watching a show. Instantly, he became even more unhappy. These damned bastards, I can't let them laugh at me like this. Brother Yuan, what should we do now? Du Bing said anxiously. Ji Chuan and the others must want to use this opportunity to establish a good relationship with the consul. We'll be in trouble then. What should we do? Yuan Gang turned around. I'm asking you, what should we do? If you don't think of something, then not only will I be finished, the two of you will be finished as well. A bunch of trash. Until now, we still haven't found out what's wrong with them. Du Bing and Yang Jiong hurriedly lowered their heads, not even daring to breathe. Brother Yuan, Ji Chuan and the others aren't here. How about we capture Zhou Su and the others? Du Bing's eyes lit up. The reason why they hadn't taken action was because Ji Chuan was stronger than them, but Zhou Su and the others were nothing. End of chapter. Chapter 7253. Yuan Gang's lips curled up after hearing this. He patted Du Bing's shoulder. You still have some ideas. Du Bing smiled. Brother Yuan, don't worry. Ji Yong and I will catch them now. Zhou Su and Lei Jun were curious after seeing Di Beichen and others set out. I heard that Guichen Tower can serve new dishes today. We can't eat fruits, but we may have some hope for this dish. Zhou Su looked at Lei Jun with expectation. How about it? Are you interested? Consul and the others are there. If we go, won't it be troublesome? We can wait for them to leave before we go in. Anyway, we have nothing to do today. Let's go out for a walk? Lei Jun thought for a moment and said, okay. Just as the two of them walked out of the door, they saw the figures of Du Bing and Yang Jiong rushing over. They were startled and secretly cursed. They didn't need to think to know that these two fellows must be coming for them. Run quickly. Zhou Su didn't have time to say more. He immediately rushed out to the other side. What a joke. They didn't have Ji Chuan's strength. Once they were caught by Du Bing, how could the result be good? After Lei Jun was stunned for a moment, he understood how bad the situation was. He didn't care about anything else and quickly ran outside. Du Bing came aggressively. Suddenly, he noticed the two leaving figures and immediately shouted, "Stop!" However, after these words were spoken, not only did Zhou Su and the other person not have the slightest intention of stopping, they instead ran even faster. "Damn it!" Du Bing cursed, "Hurry up and catch them or Brother Yuan won't spare us." Yang Jiong also understood the seriousness of the matter. He didn't have time to talk. His speed had already reached the extreme. Zhou Su and Lei Jun used all of their strength. If they were caught, they might have to give up their lives here today. Yuan Gang used this method to deal with dissatisfied people before, but they didn't expect that one day this method would fall on their heads. These two guys are so close. What if we can't get rid of them? Zhou Su was anxious and sweating. Try to delay. If we can't, we'll run into Guichin Tower. With Ji Chuan here, Du Bing won't dare to do anything. Lei Jun gasped. You're right. Zhou Su's eyes were filled with resentment. These two guys have been bullying us for a long time. When Ji Chuan and the others deal with the consul, I'll kill them both. Du Bing and the other two were dumbfounded when they realized how fast these two were. I didn't realize that these two were so fast before. Maybe he knows that he might lose his life later, so he's using all his strength now. Yang Jiong's mind was in a mess. If they didn't catch Zhou Su and Zhou Yu, they wouldn't be able to protect themselves either. At this moment, a voice suddenly came from not far away. Steward Du, what are you doing? Hearing this, Zhou Su and Du Bing only felt that it was the sound of nature, but to Du Bing and Du Bing, it was no different from the demonic sound of hell. Ji Chuan, Gu Jian and Huang Tiangue were standing not far away, watching them chase each other. Their expressions were thought-provoking. Seeing this, Zhou Su rushed directly to Huang Tiangue. Consul, they want our lives. You have to give us justice. Zhou Su, don't slander me. Yang Jiong roared. Chapter 7254. I'm not slandering you. Zhou Su also calmed down at this moment. Rashly rushing in front of the consul was obviously not a good thing, but in the current situation, if they did not take the initiative, their situation would be even worse. Ever since what happened yesterday, they've been keeping a close eye on us. As a result, as soon as you left, Du Bing came to catch us. Needless to say, she saw that we were close to Ji Chuan, so she wanted us to say something unfavorable to Ji Chuan. Zhou Su was quick-witted. They were now grasshoppers on the same boat. The reason why Yuan Gang wanted to capture them was because he wanted to deal with Ji Chuan. At this moment, he rushed to say these words first. Then, no matter what kind of reason Yuan Gang came up with in the future, it would be greatly discredited. Is what he said true? Huang Tiangui's face darkened as he looked coldly at Du Bing and the other man. Du Bing and the other two were also a little flustered. However, they understood that they absolutely could not admit to this kind of thing. Once they did, they would be finished. Consul, it's not like that. Then why do you want to capture us? Zhou Su asked. Du Bing racked her brain for a reason. We just want to discuss the matter of the mine with you. If it's just to discuss the matter of the mine, do you need to chase so desperately? Lei Jun said coldly. Du Bing and Yang Jiong looked embarrassed. They knew that their words were not persuasive, but they could not think of any other reason. Since Huang Tiangue was able to become a consul, he couldn't be a stupid person. He knew very well that Yuan Gang wouldn't be willing to let go of yesterday's incident, but the current situation. In any case, you're all stewards. Aren't you being too overbearing? Bailey Hongzhuang said indifferently. When Huang Tiangue heard this, he said, the two of you have indeed gone too far. I will punish you after I return. If I find out about this in the future, the two of you don't have to stay here anymore. Both Du Bing and the other man broke out in cold sweat. They nodded repeatedly, not daring to say anything else. On the other hand, Zhou Su and Yi Zichen were somewhat hesitant. After this incident, they did not dare to return for the time being. Yuan Gang was already enraged, and with this matter he might do something terrible. Di Baichen suddenly said, Consul, Zhou Su and the Lei army are usually very close to us. Now that such a thing has happened, I'm afraid they won't dare to go back for the time being. Why don't we go to Guichin Tower together? Huang Tiangue glanced at Zhou Su and Zhou Yu and said, okay. In a split second, Zhou Su looked at Di Baichen as if he was the savior of the world. How come he didn't realize that Ji Chuan was such a good person before? If they had discovered this earlier, they would have called each other brothers long ago. Lei Jun was also surprised. During this period of time, Ji Chuan and Gu Jian had changed a lot, but it had to be said that they were more willing to believe. Great, we can freeload lunch. Zhou Su excitedly whispered in Lei Jun's ear. Lei Jun, Yuan Gang couldn't help but frown when he saw Du Bing and the other man return with a pale face. What's wrong? You can't even beat those two? Brother Yuan, we. Du Bing looked nervous and couldn't help but look at Yang Jiong. Why don't you say it? Yang Jiong kept his head down. He didn't dare to say it. It was the same as asking for death. Say it quickly. Yuan Gang's face sank. Chapter 7255. Du Bing and Yang Jiong were so scared that they quivered. They didn't dare to hide anything and could only tell him what had happened. After hearing all this, Yuan Gang's face was as gloomy as water. He slapped Du Bing's face. Idiot. You can't even handle such a small matter. Half of Du Bing's face was swollen and blood seeped out of the corner of his mouth. He could only lower his head and remain silent, not daring to show the slightest dissatisfaction. Yesterday Ji Chuan already had the upper hand. Now that you've made such a ruckus, it's even harder to recover. Yuan Gang's eyes were burning with anger. The corner of his mouth was almost cracked, emitting a terrifying aura. He had stabilized his position in the mine for so many years. How could it be so easily taken over by Ji Chuan? In this way, how could he continue to stay here in the future? Zhou Su and Yang Jiong are nothing. Could it be that you've been bribed by Ji Chuan? Yuan Gang narrowed his eyes, emitting a murderous aura. Du Bing's back was cold. He hurriedly said, Brother Yuan, it's not like that. It's not like that. Ji Chuan must have guessed that we would have such a plan, so he specially arranged everything. Yang Jiong seemed to have figured everything out. That's why we fell into their trap. Brother Yuan, you have to believe us. We've always been loyal to you. That's right. That Ji Chuan is really too cunning. Du Bing repeatedly nodded. Ever since we threatened him that day, he must have been deliberately looking for an opportunity. Yuan Gang indifferently glanced at the two. He also felt that they didn't have the guts to betray him. Brother Yuan, how about I find someone to deal with Zhou Su and Yang Jiong? I'm afraid that these two brats also gave Ji Chuan a lot of ideas. Du Bing suggested. If we kill them now, everyone will know that we did it. Although these two guys are an eyesore, we're not in a hurry. It won't be too late to deal with them after the consul leaves. The most important thing now is how to stop Ji Chuan from persuading the consul. My position can't be shaken. Brother Yuan, in fact, the situation isn't as bad as we think. Although Ji Chuan has the intention of curry favor with the consul, our relationship with the consul has long been deeply rooted. Even if he can temporarily get the consul's attention, the consul can't directly give such an important matter to him, right? Hearing this, Yuan Gang also calmed down. Yesterday he was only angry because of Di Beichen's actions and did not think about it. You're right, but we can't just sit and wait. Brother Yuan, what are you going to do? What is the consul's usually? As long as we put in a little more effort, the consul's mind will not change. Returning mansion. Look to eat to eat to eat to eat eat to eat 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 to eat 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 Bing. T's, S2's to order. TS. Eat they, as if they, it. Huang Tiangui also saw all this, but he had to say that the sincerity shown by Ji Chuan and Yang Jiong was quite useful to him. You must have been frightened by what happened before. Yuan Gang's temper has always been unyielding. Don't take it to heart. Huang Tiangui looked at Zhou Su and Yang Jiong and said slowly. End of chapter. Chapter 7256. Listening to Huang Tiangui's words, Zhou Su and Zhou Yu felt a chill in their hearts. They understood that the consul still valued Yuan Gang very much. Even after such a thing happened, the consul still spoke to exonerate them. Bailey Hongzhuang swept a glance at Zhou Su and Zhou Yu. The two of them also understood that if they didn't agree in this situation, it would be too tactless. We understand. Huang Tiangui nodded, looking quite satisfied. The dishes here are indeed very good. Let's eat. Are you dissatisfied with me handing over my number 64 to you? How can we be dissatisfied with the arrangements of the consul? Di Beichen's expression was as usual. His eyes were clear, and there was not the slightest hint of perfunctory attitude. Huang Tiangui was also a little surprised. Even I know the situation in mine 64 very well. It's impossible that you don't know. I believe the consul's arrangement must have a deeper meaning. Huang Tiangui was amused by Di Beichen's words. Yes, I gave you the number 64 mine, but it doesn't mean that number 13 mine is not under your control. The mining rate of number 64 mine has been very low over the years, and many managers have been punished because of this. So, I plan to make number 64 mine a subsidiary mine. You don't have to pay the normal amount every month. What do you think? As soon as he said this, Zhou Su almost choked. He covered his mouth and looked at Huang Tiangue in disbelief. So, the consul's previous punishment was not a punishment at all, but a reward? The subsidiary mine didn't need to pay spirit-devouring stones, which meant that all the spirit-devouring stones were given away for free. Such a good job was something that no one could ask for. Thank you, consul. Di Beichen smiled faintly. I didn't tell you earlier because I wanted to see your reaction. However, your reaction didn't disappoint me. As the steward with the best results this time, this is the reward you deserve. Thank you for your care, consul. We have nothing to repay you with. Today we must drink to our heart's content. Bailey Hongzhuang poured a glass of wine for Huang Tiangue and raised her glass. Let's toast to the consul. Consul, you've always been fair in your rewards and punishments. We really admire you. That's what I should do. Huang Tiangue's face was full of smiles, and he couldn't be more confident and at ease. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others also understood that if they hadn't made Huang Tiangue happy this time, wouldn't this punishment be punishment? However, this result was not bad for them. Although the mining rate of number 64 mine was not as good as the other mines, it was not that there were none. This meant that they would get more spirit-devouring stones every month. There was no need to elaborate on the benefits of the devouring spirit stone. It was a great help for any cultivator to increase their mental strength. Moreover, the D family needed the devouring spirit stone very much. Thus, having an additional mine was undoubtedly a good thing. After 3 rounds of wine, Huang Tiangue was also very happy. He patted Di Beichen's shoulder and said, "Perform well. I have high hopes for you." "Consul, I have something to discuss with you, but I can't say it out loud." "Speak your mind." "I want to replace Yuan Gang's position," Di Beichen said calmly. As soon as these words came out, Zhou Su and Di Beichen exploded. Ji Chuan was too stubborn. How could he say such words so straightforwardly? In any case, he should have found a more suitable time. Huang Tiangue was also a little surprised. He had always understood Ji Chuan's thoughts, but this method was indeed a little shocking. Chapter 7257. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Zhou Su and Lei Jun. The latter immediately understood and immediately found a reason to leave. After leaving Guichen Tower, the two of them breathed a sigh of relief. My God, isn't Ji Chuan too straightforward? How could he say such words so bluntly? I think we're finished. Zhou Su looked helpless. Originally, when he saw Ji Chuan pour so much wine into the consul's mouth, he thought that Ji Chuan was going to wait until the consul was drunk and then cheat him out of a guarantee. At that time, even if the consul didn't want to admit it, there were so many witnesses. Who would have thought that Ji Chuan would directly state his purpose, and in such a shocking way? Lei Jun was also somewhat puzzled. I think Ji Chuan should have his own ideas. He's a smart person. If he wasn't sure, he wouldn't do this. Are you sure? Maybe. Lei Jun's lips twitched. He also felt that the possibility was not very high. Inside Guichen Tower, Huang Tiangue looked at Di Beichen with interest. Do you know what you meant by your words just now? Yuan Gang and I have known each other for many years. Do you think that a fledgling like you can replace him? Di Beichen looked calm. He didn't feel the slightest bit embarrassed because of the reprimand in his words. Consul, if the relationship between the two of you is really so unbreakable, I wouldn't be sitting here now. Presumptuous. Huang Tiangue's face was stern, and his eyes showed displeasure. Do you think that because I gave you a chance to come out for a meal, you're different? Naturally, I'm not so naive. Di Beichen ignored Huang Tiangue's anger. Consul, if you want to get angry, you have plenty of opportunities. Why don't you wait until I finish speaking before you get angry? Huang Tiangue sneered. Well, I'll see what you can say. Every man for himself, and the devil takes the hindmost. We are very clear about the interest between Consul and Yuan Gang. Just hearing this sentence, Huang Tiangue's veins jumped. This guy's courage was too big. So far, no one had ever said such words to him. Are you trying to threaten me? Di Beichen shook his head. If I wanted to threaten the consul, I wouldn't have to go through so much trouble. Besides, my threats are useless against you. I can give you more resources than Yuan Gang, and I have no other intentions. The consul was well aware of what Yuan Gang had done in the mines over the years. If this continued, it would not be easy to control him. I believe that you have your own considerations as well. Huang Tiangue fell into silence. During this period of time, He also found that Yuan Gang was not as easy to control as before. Yesterday's incident reflected the change in his attitude. If a person was too lawless in a familiar domain, they would no longer have any scruples in the future. This was also the reason why he wanted to support Ji Chuan. However, Ji Chuan's ambition exceeded his expectations. "Why should I believe you?" Huang Tiangue asked coldly. In the next moment, 10 fruits appeared on the table. "Consul, this is our sincerity." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Looking at the fruits in front of him, Huang Tiangue could not help but be dumbfounded. He was very clear about the price of these fruits. 10 fruits, even he would suffer a loss. In other words, Ji Chuan could calmly take out so many fruits. It was enough to show that he was not short of money at all. "You're not short of money?" As you can see. Bookmark for easy reading. Chapter 7258. Since you don't lack money, why are you doing this? Huang Tiangue didn't understand. The reason why Yuan Gang wanted to occupy this position was to fill his own pockets. However, the two of them didn't lack money at all. This meant that they didn't need to worry about this at all. If they didn't have what they wanted, wouldn't it be strange for them to stay in this position? "We naturally have what we want." Di Beichen smiled, "but it definitely has nothing to do with what you're worried about." "Consul, what do you think?" Di Beichen also spoke. "I can guarantee that we'll offer more than Yuan Gang every 3 months, and it won't be a threat to you. If you don't tell me your real plan, I can't trust you. It's very simple, we need an identity to establish a foothold here." Huang Tiangue seemed to understand a bit, but he still didn't quite understand. "Our family wants to establish a foothold here, so we need a stronger identity. We don't lack money as long as you can help us." Di Beichen's words were straightforward enough that Huang Tiangue completely understood. So the two of them didn't stay in the Duxin domain by themselves. Their families also wanted to develop here. With the Duxin domain situation, a strong identity was indeed very necessary. He had encountered this situation before. In this way everything made sense. Gong Jun occasionally looked at the private room on the second floor. The two of them had left for a while, but there was no movement in the room. He didn't know how the discussion went. "Xiaofeng, you're back." When Wenzaira noticed Di Xiaofeng's figure, a smile immediately appeared on his face. "How is it?" Di Xiaofeng shook his head. "Still no news." "We have something to tell Beichen." Bailey Yunyan quickly said, "Are they in the mine right now?" "Boss and the others are upstairs talking to the consul." "What do you want?" Gong Jun asked. "If it's not urgent, it's best to wait until this matter is resolved." "This matter isn't too urgent." Bailey Yunyan smiled. "Did Beichen and the others have a good discussion?" "Boss, there won't be a problem." Gong Jun looked confident. "We'll just wait for the good news." Inside the private room, Huang Tiangue looked at Di Beichen for a while before saying, "Okay, I promise you. As long as it's within my power, I'll give you my greatest support. But I can't do anything else." Di Beichen's lips curled up slightly. "This is already enough. If you're looking for someone, I know someone. He's very well informed. Basically, you can ask him for information." Huang Tiangue's attitude also became a lot more amiable. He knew that Di Beichen was not a threat to him. On the contrary, he could eliminate some hidden dangers, which was very good. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up. "I'll have to trouble Consul to introduce us." "Of course, that's not a problem." Huang Tiangue smiled and nodded, "But he's a person who likes and values benefits, so you must pay something." "I wonder if he'll like this fruit?" Huang Tiangue Yunyan looked at the fruit in Bailey Hongzhuang's hand and smiled. "I'm confused. This isn't a problem for you at all. I'll write a letter for you later. When the time comes, you can go directly to him." "Thank you." End of chapter. Chapter 7259. Zhou Su and Lei Jun had been guarding near Greichen Tower. They were really worried about the final result. If Ji Chuan angered the consul, they wouldn't have a good ending. However, when they saw Ji Chuan and the consul come out talking and laughing, as if they had known each other for a long time, they could not help but be a little dumbfounded. Damn, Ji Chuan is really capable. He can make the consul not angry in this situation. It's really amazing. I also admire him very much. Lei Jun sighed. When they returned to the mine, Yuan Gang rushed over immediately, wanting to find a chance to talk to Huang Tiangue in detail. However, Huang Tiangue did not give him this opportunity. He directly announced in front of everyone that the number 13 mine was still under Ji Chuan's management, and the number 64 mine became a subsidiary mine. When the news came out, everyone present was shocked. Originally, it was a tragic punishment, but now it had become an unprecedented reward. In just one day, the consul's attitude had changed so much. Everyone was amazed by Di Beichen's means. He was really the first person in history. Yuan Gang's heart suddenly became cold. What did the consul's attitude mean? That night, Yuan Gang tried his best to please Huang Tiangui, but the latter was like oil and salt. No matter what he said, he just ignored it lightly and did not respond much. Consul, this is our filial piety to you. Yuan Gang gave all the things to the consul. He had no time to feel distressed. However, Huang Tiangui smiled faintly. Keep it for yourselves. He had just received the fruit from Jichuan. These fruits could be exchanged for more important things after he brought them back. Under such circumstances, Di Beichen's title as the chief steward was almost confirmed. The next day, Huang Tiangui left respectfully with a steward. Di Beichen returned to the number 13 mine. Looking at the things still in the tent, he raised his eyebrows slightly. Throw all these things out. None of the men in the mine dared to delay. They hurriedly threw out everything they had. Jichuan, don't go too far. Yuan Gang's angry roar rang out. Di Beichen calmly shifted his gaze. I still remember Steward Yuan's response when we first talked about this. Don't you think it's a little funny? Everyone remembered that they were also in Mine 13 a while ago, but their identities had been swapped. I don't know what methods you used to bewitch the consul, but I'm telling you, I won't let this go. Yuan Gang's face was ashen as he said fiercely. Then I'd like to know why you won't give up. Di Beichen sneered. His figure flashed and he suddenly punched out. Bang! Yuan Gang flew out backward, falling directly into the mine. Zhou Su and the others silently looked at this scene. This time Di Beichen was really ruthless. Yuan Gang probably had to pray for his own good fortune. Whoosh! Yuan Gang quickly jumped up, with red and swollen marks on his face. Son of a bitch, do you really think you can cover the sky with one hand? I'll kill you today. Yuan Gang glanced at Du Bing and the others and said, all of you attack together. In an instant, Du Bing and the others rushed up and attacked Di Beichen and the others. F***ck, they're ganging up on us. Zhou Su was dumbfounded, but he quickly took out his weapon and rushed over. This chapter ends. Chapter 7260. Jichuan won't forget anyone who fights today. Lei Jun shouted. Yuan Gang had been around for a long time and had a lot of subordinates. If they didn't find help, they wouldn't be able to defeat him. Hearing this, many onlookers hesitated for a moment and then joined the camp. When Yuan Gang was in power, they didn't have good days. Although they didn't know how it would be with another person, according to their understanding, he was at least a little better than Yuan Gang. Catch the leader first. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were fierce. After saying a few words to Di Beichen, she rushed to Yang Jiong beside Yuan Gang. Di Beichen's figure was like a ghost. The power in his body burst out. He wanted to get rid of Yuan Gang as quickly as possible. Yuan Gang noticed the dark power Di Beichen displayed and couldn't help but be startled. He then looked at him in disbelief. You aren't? He remembered that Jichuan didn't have the dark attribute, but the guy in front of him had such a terrible dark attribute power. It was absolutely impossible for him to be a person. However, Di Beichen didn't give him a chance to speak. It doesn't matter whether I'm Jichuan or not. Di Beichen said in his ear. Swish. Di Beichen pulled out his sword. Yuan Gang fell down powerlessly, his eyes still filled with shock and fear. Yuan Gang is already dead. Are you sure you still want to fight? Di Beichen's calm voice sounded. In this noisy environment, it was still clear and audible. Almost instantly, everyone stopped what they were doing. With Yuan Gang's death, all of this became meaningless. Zhou Su and the others looked at Yuan Gang in disbelief. Even if they knew that Jichuan was much stronger than Yuan Gang, this speed was too fast. Could it be that the difference in strength was so big? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. With Di Beichen's strength, dealing with Yuan Gang wasn't a problem at all. In this chaotic situation, no one would notice the power that Di Beichen displayed. Bailey Hongzhuang and Lei Jun detained Du Bing and Yang Jiong. Di Beichen said, we'll let bygones be bygones. We're all managers of the mine. It'll be good for us to coexist peacefully in the future. I don't care about what happened in the past, but if someone uses these things to stir up trouble, Yuan Gang will end up like him. His voice was steady and deep and it sounded like it was full of power. However, for some reason, it exuded a terrifying aura, and the air seemed to become oppressive at this moment. Everyone unconsciously looked at the tall and straight figure. They only felt that this was an unshakable leader. If they rashly tried, they would definitely be consigned to eternal damnation. This power of deterrence was undoubtedly very useful. Everyone was silent and their hearts calmed down. Zhou Su and the other practitioners who knew a little about Ji Chuan seemed to suddenly understand why he could reach this step. Unconsciously, he had become extraordinary and different. Manager Ji, what should we do with these two people? Lei Jun looked at Ji Chuan. He didn't care about others, but Du Bing and Yang Jiong had a very good relationship with Yuan Gang. He was afraid that they wouldn't give up so easily. Drive them out. I've received a lot of reports. They threatened a lot of managers. It can be said that they are guilty of many crimes. They shouldn't continue to stay here. But let them go like this. Zhou Su was a little unwilling. If these two guys went out, he didn't know if they would cause other trouble. Let's do it. End of chapter. Chapter 7261. Seeing Di Beichen's firm attitude, Zhou Su and the others didn't dare to say anything else. However, the other stewards heaved a sigh of relief. Since Ji Chuan was so lenient towards Du Bing and Du Zhangfeng, he must really be letting bygones be bygones. However, no one noticed Bailey Hongzhuang's small movements. At night, Di Beichen and Du Zhangfeng returned to Guichen Tower. Big brother, you're saying that father has already seen the entrance to the crossing immortal domain, but he didn't come? Di Beichen's eyes were filled with joy. He already knew that with father's cultivation speed, this should be very fast. Di Xiaofeng nodded slightly. Didn't you say that directly ascending is very dangerous, so we shouldn't do it for now? However, I think father is quite disappointed. He also wants to come here to take a look. Very soon. Once we're done with things here, father and the others will be able to come. Di Beichen smiled faintly. Hong Zhuang and I are going to find someone to ask for information first. You guys stay here for a while and be careful. It has something to do with Xiao Sou? That's right. Be careful. The next day, Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang set off on their journey. According to the information Huang Tiangue gave them, this person lived in the central region of the crossing immortal domain. It would take them several days to get there from here. I haven't seen Yunju and the others for a while. I wonder if they're doing well in the chaotic immortal domain. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the blue sky with a trace of longing in her eyes. With Yunju and Zhong Li's abilities, there shouldn't be a problem. Di Beichen smiled. Once we're done with things here, we'll meet up with them and head to the immortal domain together, okay? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Of course. Who knows, they might have already broken through to the elementary immortal stage by the time we return. They definitely will. Mo Yunjue and Zhongli Mu were both extremely talented people, especially Zhongli Mu, who was only a step away from breaking through. If they had some kind of opportunity during this period of time, breaking through wouldn't be difficult. At the same time, somewhere in the realm of chaos, Mo Yunjue and Zhongli Mu were going through an extremely difficult test. This test was simply unbearable for ordinary people. Even though the two of them had extraordinary endurance at this moment, their veins were bulging and their faces were filled with pain. Hold on. Zhong Limu gritted his teeth. As long as we break through to the elementary immortal stage, we will be able to find Big Sister Hong Zhuang. Mo Yunjue did not say a word. His deep black eyes were shining with an unwavering light. After traveling for a few days, Di Beichen finally arrived at their destination. Looking at the unusually lively city in front of them, Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows slightly. Previously, she had heard that the central part of the immortal domain was the most prosperous place. Now that she had come to take a look, it was indeed so. The scale of this city was undoubtedly several times larger than the city they were originally in. The streets were even wider. Although there were many people, it was not crowded. Everywhere was filled with liveliness. It should be here. However, we don't know the exact location. I'm afraid we'll have to ask someone. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Di Beichen naturally held her hand and interlocked their fingers. You must be tired. Let's go eat first. Since Huang Tiangue said that this person is very famous, I'm sure we'll be able to find his whereabouts if we ask around. That should be the case. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. I hope he'll give us the answer we want. End of chapter. Chapter 7262. The two of them strolled around the city and found a restaurant that seemed to be doing very well. Then they walked in. Di Beichen skillfully ordered a few dishes that Bailey Hongzhuang liked. Then he said, You've been on the road for a few days. Are you tired? Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. I'm not tired. Annie, you're beautiful. Suddenly, A 3-year-old child ran to Bailey Hongzhuang's side. The girl had 2 braids and was wearing a bright red dress. She was looking at her with sparkling eyes. Chin, you're running around again. Come here. A hurried voice sounded. The girl hurried to Bailey Hongzhuang and hugged the child. She said apologetically, I'm so sorry. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and waved her hand. Don't worry. She's very cute. Auntie likes me. The girl was very happy. She grabbed Bailey Hongzhuang's hand. You're so obedient. Of course we all like you. Bailey Hongzhuang patted the girl's head. She took out a fruit and put it in the girl's hand. For you. The girl at the side was a little embarrassed. She hurriedly said, hurry up and say thank you. Thank you, Auntie. It wasn't until the woman took the girl away that Bailey Hongzhuang retracted her gaze, the curve of her lips still bright and beautiful. Isn't the child cute? Di Beichen suddenly said. Oh. Bailey Hongzhuang looked up and nodded. Very cute. Let's have a child after the situation in the crossing immortal region is settled. What do you think? Di Beichen held her hand. Grandmother has been talking about it for a long time. I also want a child. Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly stunned. The man's handsome face had always been cold. But when he said this, his expression became very gentle. She almost subconsciously nodded. She loved the man in front of her so deeply. How could she not wish to have a child who was as cool as him? Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang nod, the smile on Di Beichen's face deepened. That's great. However, he did not notice the complicated look in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes after she nodded. Look at you always bringing the child here. If it affects the guests' meals, what will happen to our restaurant's business? The manager's reprimanding voice came from the front. Shopkeeper, Chin didn't affect. Half of this month's salary will be deducted. The shopkeeper completely ignored the woman's explanation and coldly made the decision. The woman's face paled. She wanted to say something, but in the end she shut her mouth powerlessly. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but frown when she saw this scene. It was obvious that the shopkeeper was exaggerating in order to deduct wages. Speaking of which, this matter had something to do with her as well. She couldn't stand it anymore. However, when she saw the woman's helpless expression, she still didn't say anything. This was because to this woman this job might be very important. If she acted rashly and angered the shopkeeper, this woman might not even be able to survive. Di Beichen also noticed this scene and understood why Bailey Hongzhuang didn't do anything. He immediately said, Don't worry. If you want to help her, there are many ways. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. The only thing she could do was to compensate the woman before she left. After all, this matter had started because of her. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded from their left. It was filled with dissatisfaction and disdain. Shopkeeper, there are worms floating on your soup. How am I supposed to eat this? End of chapter. Chapter 72-63. Seeing this, the shopkeeper hurriedly ran over. When he saw the bug floating on the soup, his expression turned ugly. Sir, the food in our restaurant has always been very clean. Perhaps it accidentally fell in? The shopkeeper forced a smile. How about I change it for you? The man sneered. This soup has already affected my appetite. Just looking at it makes me lose my appetite. I don't know if I would have noticed this when I was eating just now. Sir, what do you plan to do? This is your restaurant's fault. Let's waive the bill. Hearing this, the shopkeeper's face turned pale. There were quite a lot of things on the table. If the bill was waived, he might not be able to afford it. Shopkeeper, I saw this person deliberately catch a bug and put it in. He did it on purpose. At this moment, a person beside the shopkeeper stood up and looked at the man who asked for a waiver with disdain. As soon as this was said, everyone in the restaurant looked at the man with disdain. This person is too shameless. Could it be that he can't afford it, so he did it on purpose? This restaurant is really unlucky to have met such a customer. If more of them come, how can this restaurant do business? He looks like a decent person, but I didn't expect him to be so shameless. You really can't judge a book by its cover. Mocking laughter rang out, but the man did not move. It was as if these words were not directed at him. This person is really strange. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the man in confusion. Generally speaking, anyone would have a sense of shame. This kind of trick was exposed in front of everyone. If it were anyone else, they would inevitably feel guilty. However, this man's magnanimous and upright appearance made people suspicious. You think I did it just because you say I did it? The man raised his eyebrows and looked at the person beside him. Do you have evidence? What evidence do I need? I saw it with my own eyes. In other words, no one can testify except for you. The man spread out his hands. I saw that you were very familiar with the shopkeeper earlier. Isn't that nonsense? How can you reverse black and white? You're slandering me without any evidence. If you want to fight, I'll accompany you to the end. The man's aura suddenly erupted, and his eyes were terrifying. Elementary celestial stage. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression changed. In the crossing immortal domain, beginning immortal realm cultivators were extremely rare. Sure enough, after feeling the man's terrifying aura, everyone immediately fell silent. Making an enemy out of such an expert, wasn't that just courting death? Sir, this meal is free of charge. The manager hurriedly said, not daring to have the slightest doubt. In the face of such an expert, even if the other party really wanted to pay on credit, they had no choice. Moreover, with this man's strength, it was impossible for him to be poor. Why didn't you say so earlier? The man lazily glanced at the shopkeeper, then called the woman over. Yes. The female attendant looked at the man with some apprehension. She didn't understand why he had called her here at this time. This is for you. The service is good and the child is very cute. After placing the high-grade blood spirit stone on the table, the man turned and left. The woman stared at the blood spirit stone in a daze. Her eyes were filled with disbelief. She hurriedly bowed to the man's back as he left. Thank you, sir. The shopkeeper's face instantly turned ashen. This blood spirit stone was much more expensive than this meal. End of chapter. Chapter 72-64. Everyone in the hall looked at the man's departing figure in astonishment. Previously they had thought that this man was extremely shameless, but after seeing this scene, they all suddenly understood. Thinking about it, this man must be angry with the shopkeeper's way of doing things, so he deliberately did this to disgust the shopkeeper. Casually tossing out a high-grade blood spirit stone showed that this man's status was not low. How could he not be able to afford a meal? This man is really interesting. Bailey Hongzhuang turned around with a faint smile. She had intended to compensate the waitress before she left, but she did not expect that someone would beat her to it. Indeed. Di Baichen nodded in agreement. This person should not be simple. In the crossing immortal domain, where most people were below the radiant sun realm, an elementary immortal realm expert was extraordinary. This shopkeeper should be taught a lesson. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at the shopkeeper. From the expression of the waitress, she could tell that this was not the first time the shopkeeper had docked her wages, but he had no choice but to endure it. It wasn't until after the meal that Bailey Hongzhuang walked in front of the waitress. Miss, do you have any instructions for me? The waitress looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a smile on her face. It was obvious that Bailey Hongzhuang's love for the child made her very happy. This is for you. Bailey Hongzhuang stuffed the blood spirit stone into the woman's hand. The woman looked at it and saw that it was another high-grade blood spirit stone. She was shocked and hurriedly said, Miss, you can't do that. Bailey Hongzhuang stopped her hand that was about to refuse. She smiled and said, I've caused you to have your salary deducted. I'll play a song occasionally. Just accept it. This is my mistake. It has nothing to do with you. Looking at the woman's anxious expression, Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. Just take it as a token of my affection for Qin. Seeing this, the female attendant thanked her with reddened eyes. Thank you, Mississippi. You really have the heart of a Buddha. Before leaving, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly said, I want to ask you about a person, Chen Yangi. Have you heard of this person? Hearing this name, the female attendant was slightly startled. May I know why the two of you are looking for this person? Bailey Hongzhuang took in the waitress's reaction. We just want to ask him for some information. The waitress breathed a sigh of relief and smiled. His place is not far from here. Go out and turn left. When you see the second alley, you will see a house with a willow tree at the door. Many thanks. Bailey Hongzhuang said a word of thanks before leaving. I didn't expect this attendant to be so familiar with Chen Yangi. She even knows the exact location of his residence. This saves us a lot of trouble. Bailey Hongzhuang looked up at Di Baichen with a faint smile in her eyes. If Chen Yangi could really help them find Xiao Sou, then it would be much easier to solve their problem. This woman should know Chen Yangi. When she heard that we were looking for Chen Yangi, her first reaction was that she was worried that we were looking for trouble. Chen Yangi is so famous. His reputation should be quite well known. But if he can be protected like this, it means that he can't be too bad. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. According to Huang Qinggui's description, Chen Yangi was simply a mercenary. The two of them were prepared to be slaughtered if they went to ask for information. Chapter 7265. Soon the two of them found the place the waitress pointed to. Looking at the willow tree in front of them, Di Baichen raised his eyes. This is the place. The red-painted door was not large, but it gave off a feeling of wealth. Knock knock. After knocking on the door, a servant opened the door not long after. Seeing the unfamiliar figures in front of him, the servant was a little puzzled. Who are you looking for? We're looking for young Master Qian. Why are you looking for our young master? The servant sized up the two of them with vigilance between his brows. Please give this letter to young Master Qian. We're here today to ask for information. The servant took the letter and said, Please wait for a moment. I'll go inform young master now. As the servant left, Bailey Hongzhuang also noticed that the courtyard was much bigger than the door. Obviously, the house hidden behind the alley was not noticed by ordinary people. Great hermit. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. It's a good place. Soon the servant came back. Please come in. After passing through the courtyard and walking for a while, the two of them saw the man in the small courtyard. However, when they saw the man, a trace of surprise appeared in their eyes. Wasn't this the man they met at the restaurant who refused to pay up? No wonder the waitress looked so nervous when they questioned her. It turned out that the key point was here. The man turned his head, and when he saw the two of them, he was obviously a little surprised. However, his eyes quickly turned cold. Young Master Qian, we've met at the restaurant before. Di Baichen spoke up. Chen Yangyi glanced at the two of them and faintly said, Obviously he was not interested. Bailey Hongzhuang was not affected by his indifferent attitude. We're here today to ask young Master Qian to help us find a person. This is very important to us. However, before she could finish, Chen Yangyi raised his hand to stop her. The two of you were introduced by Huang Tiangui. I should help, but after seeing the scene at the restaurant, we're not kindred spirits. Chen Yangyi's expression was indifferent. Please return. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was slightly sluggish. She did not understand what Chen Yangyi meant. Young Master Qian, we didn't do anything to offend you in the restaurant. People who walk different paths cannot make plans together. There's no need to say anything more. Chen Yangyi called for a servant. See the guest out. The servant came forward and pushed Bailey Hongzhuang. Miss, our young master has nothing more to say. No matter what it is, we can discuss it. If we did something wrong, we can also apologize. Di Baichen took a step forward. His sharp and intimidating aura caused the atmosphere to freeze. When the servant noticed Di Baichen's eyes that were like ice blades, he didn't dare to make the slightest movement for fear of angering the killing god beside him. Such a terrifying gaze made people feel fear from the bottom of their hearts. After noticing Di Baichen's strength, Chen Yangyi couldn't help but look at him in a new light. However, the disgust between his brows remained unchanged. I know you're very strong, but just based on this point it's not enough. I've never been a person who would be threatened. I don't intend to threaten you. Whether you help or not is your choice. We can't force you. But with such an attitude, perhaps we're not kindred spirits. Di Baichen indifferently glanced at Chen Yangyi. Unlike the disgust in the latter's eyes, there was only disdain in his eyes. End of chapter. Chapter 7266. Di Baichen suddenly turned around and held Bailey Hongzhuang's hand as they left the courtyard. His footsteps were firm, steady, and without hesitation. Chen Yangyi watched the two leave with a complicated expression on his face. Then he sneered and returned to his room. When they left the courtyard, Bailey Hongzhuang realized that Di Baichen's face was still terrifyingly dark. She could not help but say, "Don't be angry. Although I don't know what I did to make him unhappy at the restaurant, didn't you make him unhappy just now? You really don't care about trifles." Di Baichen stopped and looked helplessly at the woman beside him who was full of concern. Me? Bailey Hongzhuang was confused. What about me? Di Baichen did not speak. Bailey Hongzhuang thought for a while before saying, "You mean that servant? He is not my match at all, so I did not take him seriously." That won't do. Di Baichen reached out and pinched the woman's white and tender face. You're a woman. That servant is as ungentlemanly as his master. It's fine if you don't care. Then didn't we make a wasted trip this time? Bailey Hongzhuang felt that it was a pity. When Huang Tiangui said that, he was full of confidence. Now they had placed their greatest hope on Chen Yangyi. If they were rejected, they would have no choice but to cut off another path. We will find it. Di Beichen smoothed Bailey Hongzhuang's brows. Actually, the secret key is not that important. Even if we can't open it, it doesn't matter. As for Xiao Sou, her threat to the family is limited. Once we have a stable foothold in the crossing immortal domain, father and the rest will come here. Then we won't have to worry about Xiao Sou. In his heart, nothing was more important than Hong Zhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang looked up and saw the man's gentle and handsome face. At that moment, it was as if he was the sky. With him around, all problems would not be problems. Yes. A smile blossomed on the woman's lips. She held onto the man's arm and a familiar and reassuring aura enveloped her. Even her depressed mood after being rejected became brighter. Since we're here, let's take a look around here. Maybe we'll find something. What do you think? Looking at the woman's smiling face, Di Beichen nodded. His tone was indescribably doting. Good. Just as the two of them walked out of the alley, they were surprised to see the waitress. The two of you, have you finished your task? The female attendant's eyes were still filled with gratitude, and then there was a trace of worship. Young Master Chen has always been very powerful. Anyone who asks him for information will never be wrong. I'm afraid we'll have to disappoint you. Young Master Chen rejected our request. The female attendant was slightly stunned when she heard this, and she seemed to be in slight disbelief. What? We're not the same kind of people. Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged. That's what he said. This? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. It's okay. If you run out now, what will happen to Chen? She's really cute. Take good care of her. After giving a few instructions, Bailey Hongzhuang left with Di Beichen. The female attendant stood on the spot, and her mind was still filled with the woman's warm smile. Why? Are we not the same kind of people? After being rejected, Bailey Hongzhuang was not in a bad mood. On the contrary, it was rare for them to come to such a big city. They might as well stay here for 2 days. Maybe they would be lucky enough to find Xiao Sou. Chapter 72-67. After the two of them walked around the city, they did not see Xiao Sou or Shuyu. They could only ask some people, but they all said that they had never seen them before. The two of them were not surprised. There were so many people in the crossing immortal domain. It was not easy to find one person. I think this area is quite big and it's quite peaceful. We can consider sending people here to look for them. Bailey Hongzhuang looked around. There were fewer fights in the crossing immortal domain than in the chaotic immortal domain. It seemed to be much more peaceful. Indeed. Di Beichen nodded. Xiao Sudong may have already come to the crossing immortal domain. With their strength, if they are not strong enough, they should be very low-key. Unless it is someone who often meets them, the average person will not have a deep impression of them even if they have seen them. Xiao Sou and the others were like them. They did not have enough background to establish themselves here. In other words, they were like people who had sneaked in. Once they were discovered, they would inevitably cause trouble. Hence, the best way was to keep a low profile and not be discovered by others. That's true. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. However, this will make it more difficult for us to find them. There's always a way out. We just need to spend more time. Di Beichen smiled. Or we won't have to worry when more cultivators from our family have ascended. It was late at night. Bailey Hongzhuang turned to look at Di Beichen, who was sleeping soundly beside her. She could not help but recall what he said in the morning. When the time comes, let's have a child, okay? This sentence repeatedly echoed in her mind. The gentle voice that was like a feather touched her heart, but it was incomparably heavy. All this time she had not been pregnant. She knew that Di Beichen thought that she did not want to have a child for the time being, so he used some methods. In the beginning she did that. However, after listening to her grandmother's wishes every day, she changed her mind. Perhaps it would be good for them to have a child sooner. They had been married for many years. They could accompany their child as he grew up. It was undoubtedly very blissful. However, when she realized that she had never been pregnant, she felt very strange. As a doctor, she knew very well whether there was anything wrong with her body. But other than that, she had never been pregnant. Even she found it very strange. What was the reason? Bailey Hongzhuang frowned and looked at the bright moonlight outside the window, unable to fall asleep. There must be a problem somewhere, but she was unable to determine where the problem lay. The next day, when the two walked out of the inn, they found a familiar figure in front of them. Looking at the servant in front of her, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but ask, "Is something the matter? Young master invites you over." Why? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. Apparently, she did not take his words to heart. Yesterday Chen Yangyi's words were already very resolute. What could happen if they went over now? It would only cause unhappiness. They really had no interest in it. I don't know about that, but young master naturally has his own ideas, the servant replied. People who walk different paths cannot make plans together. There is no need to force it. Di Beichen coldly glanced at the servant. There was still an unchanging coldness between his brows. The servant looked at Di Beichen with fear. He could not even speak clearly. Young master said, "It's not like that." Chapter 7268. If not that, then what? Di Beichen asked. Young master didn't say anything. The two of you can just go. The servant swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Didn't you need young master's help? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyebrows showed a trace of doubt. The manservant was scared but still forced to finish his words. Obviously he was not joking. Could it be that Chen Yangyi had changed his mind? Beichen, let's go take a look. Bailey Hongzhuang grabbed Di Beichen's arm. They hadn't found a better way yet. If Chen Yangyi really changed his mind, it wouldn't be a bad thing for them. When the servant saw Bailey Hongzhuang speak, he felt as if he had been pardoned. This man's gaze was simply too terrifying. Just by looking at him for a while, he felt that his back was soaked in cold sweat. Mrs. Right. There's no harm in making a trip there. Only after the servant left did Bailey Hongzhuang and Lin Mingya walk towards Chen Yangyi's residence. This Chen Yangyi should have some ability. When we left yesterday he didn't pay attention to us at all. However, he easily knew where we lived. This proves that he has a wide network. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. She didn't have any feelings for Chen Yangyi. After all, he was just someone they needed help from. If he could help them, that would be for the best. If he couldn't, then it wasn't a big deal. If his attitude is still the same, then there's no need to pay attention to him. Di Beichen looked serious. He didn't want Hongzhuang to be wrong because of him. This was not the only way to solve the problem. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the man's serious and solemn expression, and the corners of her lips unconsciously rose, but her heart was warm. She had to admit that such a Di Beichen was very cute in her eyes. I understand. When the two of them arrived at Chen Yangyi's residence again, Chen Yangyi's attitude was clearly better. We meet again. Chen Yangyi looked at the two of them, the disgust in his eyes was gone. I wonder what business does young Master Chen have with us? Di Beichen's voice was mild, and his aura was cold and solemn, without the slightest hint of teasing. Such an attitude caused the atmosphere to be rather heavy, and it didn't feel relaxed at all. When the manservant at the side saw this scene, he hated that he couldn't leave this place. This man's aura was really somewhat terrifying. Even his master didn't make him feel so oppressed. You said earlier that you needed my help. What is it? Bailey Hongzhuang also found it strange that Chen Yangyi's attitude had changed so drastically. This person's attitude was really inexplicable. Yesterday he inexplicably drove them away. Today he inexplicably asked them if they needed any help. His attitude had changed so much that it was as if he was a completely different person. Chen Yangyi noticed their strange expressions and his expression became a little awkward. He coughed dryly and said, "Tell me about it first. I can consider helping you. Yesterday you said that we are not the same kind of people. Today you want us to tell you the matter. If you were in my shoes, would you believe it?" Di Beichen's frosty face was serious, and the light of wisdom flashed through his eyes. He calmly and straightforwardly stated a fact. Chen Yangyi's expression was even more awkward. He naturally understood the true meaning of Di Beichen's words. In the end he really didn't do well. If it was him, he also wouldn't believe this kind of situation. Chapter 7269. Young Master, this is a misunderstanding. A familiar female voice came from the side. Bailey Hongzhuang turned her head and saw the female attendant she saw yesterday walking over with an apologetic look on her face. The reason why young Master Chen had such an attitude yesterday was that he thought you were indifferent after seeing what happened to me, so he was dissatisfied. I have already explained it, so young Master Chen changed his attitude. Hearing this explanation, Bailey Hongzhuang finally understood. After all the fuss, it turned out to be this matter. This Chen Yangyi was too uptight. You are... Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes moved back and forth between the waitress and Chen Yangyi. Because the waitress was wronged, Chen Yangyi was unhappy with the shopkeeper in front of everyone. Now that he saw the waitress appear here, if he said that these two people did not know each other, only a fool would believe it. I used to be young Master Chen's maid and left after I got married. I didn't expect to see young Master Chen again a few days ago. the female attendant explained. I see. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows and did not take it to heart. She didn't care about the relationship between the waitress and Chen Yangyi, but now that she knew that it was all a misunderstanding, it meant that she might be able to get news about Xiao Sou as soon as possible. Chen Yangyi noticed that Di Beichen and Li Du understood what was going on. He then said, let's talk inside. Inside the room. The waitress brought in the tea and left. Chen Yangyi said, what happened yesterday was a misunderstanding. Now that it has been resolved, it's nothing. Tell me what you need me to help you with. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Chen Yangyi's slightly embarrassed face and knew that apologizing was a very strange thing for him. It was not easy for him to say such words. Looking at Di Beichen on the side, his attitude towards Chen Yangyi was still as indifferent as ever. Obviously, such an apology had no effect on him. We would like you to help us find someone, Bailey Hongzhuang said. Chen Yangyi raised his eyebrows. Many people look for me to inquire about all kinds of information, including looking for people. However, you need to provide me with certain information. Bailey Hongzhuang handed the portrait to Chen Yangyi and said, we're looking for this person. She should have just arrived in the crossing Immortal Domain 2 years ago. She's not very strong. It's very likely that she's with these two men. Xiao Sou, Xiao Sudong and Shu Yu, but I can't be sure if they have changed their names. After a brief introduction, Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Chen Yangyi's expression. They didn't give much information. It was still like looking for a needle in a haystack in the entire crossing Immortal Domain. However, since Chen Yangyi was very good at this, he definitely had his ways. Chen Yangyi carefully looked at the portrait in his hand and memorized the names of the three people. Only then did he say, give me a month and I will give you an answer. Really? Bailey Hongzhuang was a little happy. They had been looking for Xiao Sou for more than a month, but there was no news at all. Of course it's true. Chen Yangyi's eyebrows were filled with confidence. I will tell you their whereabouts in a month. Thank you very much. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Beichen with a smile. This was really good news for them. Chen Yangyi kept the portrait and said, now that we're done talking, it's time to talk about the reward. Chapter 7270. Seeing Chen Yangyi's sudden change in expression, Bailey Hongzhuang's heart couldn't help but tremble. She subconsciously thought of Gong Jun. Sure enough, all unscrupulous businessmen had the ability to change their expressions like this. I wonder what kind of payment young Master Chen would like? 300 high-grade blood spirit stones. Upon hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes widened. 300? That's right, 300. Chen Yangyi nodded. His expression was calm as usual. You should know that I'm not cheap. Moreover, you didn't give me much information. The three of them are cultivators who just appeared in the Crossing Immortal region. Obviously, I can't find them directly with my past contacts. I have to spend more effort to find them. If I hadn't misunderstood you yesterday, the price would have doubled. Chen Yangyi raised his eyebrows. The reason for this discount is because of what happened yesterday. I apologize to you guys. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang was speechless. 300 high-grade blood spiritual stones was a sky-high price. She had always thought that Gong Jun's shop was a bit black-hearted, but compared to this guy in front of her, Gong Jun was simply too heartless. As the manager of the mine, his monthly salary was only 2 high-grade blood spirit stones. However, this guy directly asked for $300, which was equivalent to working as a manager for more than 10 years. What? If you can't even accept this price, then forget it. Chen Yangyi waved his hand and handed the painting over. Just pretend that I didn't say anything. Okay, I agree. Di Beichen nodded calmly and placed the Cosmos sack on the table. We'll come back in a month. Great. Chen Yangyi's face revealed a refreshing smile. When the time comes, I'll be waiting for you here. Don't worry, I won't make any mistakes in what I promised. Thank you very much. After leaving Chen Yangyi's residence, Bailey Hongzhuang revealed a comfortable smile. Previously, the consul had told them that Chen Yangyi had always been very good at asking around. As long as he promised something, he would often succeed. So far, there had not been a case of failure. As long as they could find Xiao Sou, many problems could be solved quickly. I hope Chen Yangyi can really give us the information we want. 1 month is not long, Bailey Hongzhuang said with a smile. Di Beichen's eyes darkened. He does have such strength. Looking at Di Beichen's serious expression, Bailey Hongzhuang knew that he must have observed something. However, as long as Chen Yangyi could really give them the information, it was enough. The two didn't stay for long. Since Chen Yangyi had already promised them, they didn't need to spend any more effort to find him. It was also good to return to the mine as soon as possible. Now the situation in the mine was basically stable. With Zhou Su and Lei Jun in charge, they didn't need to worry too much. However, they had been away for several days. If they didn't come back for such a long time, people would be suspicious. Since they had decided to gain a foothold in the mine, they had to spend some effort. At the same time, Gong Jun couldn't help but frown after hearing the news reported by his subordinate. You mean that Qing Devil has sent people to the Dushin domain? Yes. This guy is quite fast. Gong Jun narrowed his eyes. Through this period of time, he had learned about the grudge between boss and Qing Devil. Chapter 72-71. From the looks of it, that fellow has a strong desire to kill Master. That's why he couldn't wait to rush over after hearing the news. Young Master Gong, should we get rid of this group of people? The man asked. After thinking for a while, Gong Jun shook his head and said, Don't do that now. This is the grudge between Master and Qing Devil. If we act rashly, we will definitely give ourselves away. What's more, this is Master's own experience. If such a situation occurs, it may not be completely without benefits. But these fellows aren't weak at all. Among Master's group, only 2 have broken through to the elementary celestial stage. The others aren't a match for them. There was a trace of hesitation on the man's face. His brows were filled with worry. Gong Jun smiled and waved his hand. The situation may not be as bad as you think. If it gets to that point, it won't be too late for us to make a move. But once our people make a move at that time, won't we be exposed? The man looked at Gong Jun in confusion. Could it be that young Master Gong feels that it's time to tell Master everything? Of course not. Gong Jun shook his head. Before Master unseals his own memories, let's not tell anyone about this. Then what are you doing? Don't forget, Master has always been a strong person. Gong Jun smiled. In his mind, the image of that cold, determined, and invincible man appeared. Wherever he was, others could only choose to avoid him. Even though his master had been sealed, his master was still his master. Gong Jun had never doubted his strength. Looking at Gong Jun's confident appearance, the man also recalled the scene when he first followed his master. His master had always been invincible. What you need to pay attention to now is the 4th prince's movements. Gong Jun's eyes darkened, and a trace of sternness flashed through his eyes. In the years that Master was not around, the 4th prince has been quite active. Now that he knows that Master has appeared, he can no longer hold himself back. We must prevent him from doing anything crazy. This subordinate understands. The man nodded seriously and said, The 1st princess has also received some news. I'm afraid she will also intervene. If we meet her, what should we do? Gong Jun pondered for a moment and said, The eldest princess's men? Think of a way to let them meet the 4th prince's men. We'll take the opportunity to escape. This. The man looked a little embarrassed. What we need to do is to protect our master. In Gong Jun's eyes, there was a trace of comfort. Don't you think? Master is happier than before? Hearing this, the man paused slightly and his aura also paused. Indeed, the former master was invincible, cold and biting cold. No one dared to approach him. As followers, they only had worship in front of such a master. They looked up at the high and mighty man with reverence. But now the master had a completely different feeling. He stood beside that woman, gentle and tolerant. They had never seen such a smile before, but now they often saw it. If one were to ask what kind of master was the most domineering, it would naturally be the former master. But from the master's point of view, perhaps the current life was what he wanted the most. As subordinates, how could they destroy all of this? Gong Jun noticed the man's stunned expression and knew that he also understood the key point. So, what we need to protect is not only the master but also everything that the master cares about. Chapter 72-72. When Bailey Hongzhuang returned to the mine, many stewards took the initiative to greet them. No one asked about their whereabouts. After calling for their subordinates and looking through the notebook of the past few days, the 2 of them felt at ease. Everything was going smoothly and there was nothing wrong. It seems that after Yuan Gang's death, everyone has quieted down. Bailey Hongzhuang sat down on the soft couch. No one was looking for trouble, and Qian Yangyi had already accepted the mission. No matter how one looked at it, this was good progress. You're finally back. Zhou Su's voice sounded from outside the door. Where have you been all this time? Don't you know how to say hello before you come in? Di Beichen raised his eyebrows. We're all men, what's there to greet? Could it be that you're hiding a woman here? Zhou Su chuckled. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression changed. She was a woman. Did this mean that Beichen was hiding her? If you say that Gu Jian is hiding a woman, I would believe it. But if you say that you are hiding a woman, I really don't believe it. Lei Jun also casually walked to the side and sat down. Let me tell you a piece of news. Not long after your Du Bing and the others left, these two fellows also died. Bailey Hongzhuang looked calm. How did you know? I was worried that they would be restless, so I sent people to keep an eye on them. Lei Jun replied, you haven't been here for too long, so you may not have enough understanding. The two of them have been with Yuan Gang for a long time, and they are completely trusted. If this kind of thing happened to others, perhaps the others would have already left. However, these two people would definitely not let it go. They would definitely think of a way to come back for revenge. However, the people I sent out soon told me that the two of them were dead. As for who killed them, I don't know. These two people usually follow Yuan Gang to commit crimes. There must be a lot of people who hate them. Maybe when they left here, their enemies would already be scrambling to catch up. It's not strange for such a situation to occur. Zhou Su said indifferently, this is a good thing. Lei Jun looked at the calm faces of Di Beichen and Xia Xiaoluo, and a vague idea flashed through his mind. He quickly grasped the idea and immediately understood. You guys are the ones who did it, right? Zhou Su was stunned. How is that possible? Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curved slightly. Does it matter who did it? His calm tone was as if he was narrating an insignificant matter. The man's calm face was like an ancient well without any ripples. This almost disguised admission made Lei Jun completely understand. It turned out that from the beginning, the two of them had no intention of letting Du Bing and Yang Jiong go. The reason why he said that was just to make the other stewards feel at ease. These two people had really planned everything so well that not even a drop of water could leak out. Now all the stewards thought that the two of them were far more magnanimous than Yuan Gang, but they didn't know that the two of them had already completely solved the hidden dangers. I finally understand. Lei Jun sighed. No wonder you can see Yuan Gang's job and take it. You don't have to worry. We have always been sincere to our friends. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows, and the smile on her lips was sincere and warm. They were fierce and ruthless to their enemies, but they were always sincere to their friends. Chapter 72-73. What did you say? Gong Jun suddenly raised his voice and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in disbelief. Just asking for a piece of information costs 300 high-grade blood spirit stones? The asking price is indeed quite high, Di Beichen said frankly. It's not just high. It's simply too high. Gong Jun said with a pained expression. Prodigal, he's definitely a prodigal. Di Xiaofeng and the others couldn't help but laugh when they saw Gong Jun's bloodshot eyes, as if someone close to him had died. Sure enough, this guy cared about money the most. What kind of people are those fellows? I'm going to look for him. It's simply a black shop. We haven't been able to find Xiao Sou's whereabouts. Now that someone can help us find her, although the price is higher, it's still not bad, Bai Lianche said. Over the past few days he had been running all over the area, but there was no news at all. Do you know what 300 high-grade blood spirit stones mean? Gong Jun lamented, our shop is already shady enough, but this guy is even more shady than me. I can't stand it. I'll wait for a month. If the news isn't accurate by then, I'll go and find that guy. Everyone, sure enough, Gong Jun's way of thinking had always been so different. Meanwhile, on the other side, Lord Qing Devil, we're almost certain that Di Beichen and the others are in the crossing immortal domain. Do you plan to? I haven't gone out for a long time since I came back. It's time for me to go out for a walk. The corners of Azure Demon's mouth curled into a faint smile. However, his subordinates could not help but feel shocked when they saw this smile. Every time the Qing Devil smiled like that, it meant that blood was about to be spilled. They didn't know how these two guys from the crossing immortal domain offended the Qing Devil, but they were really unlucky to have been remembered by the Qing Devil for so long. Send someone to keep an eye on them. Don't let them escape. Yes. Compared with Qing Devil's aggressiveness, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had no idea that danger was approaching them. In their opinion, they were bound to meet the Qing Devil, but they would only meet her after they went to the immortal realm. They didn't expect that they would meet her so early. Say Wu, I think someone seems to be watching us recently. You should be careful when you go out. Inside the house, Shu Yu's expression was a little complicated. He had a vague feeling that something was not quite right. He couldn't pinpoint the exact location, but his many years of experience gave him a feeling that they were in some danger. Xiao Sou chuckled when she heard that. Master, aren't you being too cautious? We're in the crossing celestial domain now, not the upper realm. Who would target us? Xiao Sudong nodded slightly. Indeed, we have always kept a low profile here. No one will notice us. Looking at the confident looks of the two, Shu Yu was also a little hesitant. In fact, this was just his intuition and there was no evidence. Thinking about it carefully, it was indeed impossible. You'd better be careful these days. The D family's strength can't be underestimated. You failed to kill them last time, so they have been more vigilant. Xiao Sou's eyes flashed with a trace of ruthlessness when she heard that. So what? They stay in the upper realm and their strength can't be compared with ours. If that old man wasn't lucky, he would have been killed by me. Chapter 72-74. Xiao Sou narrowed her eyes. She hated Bailey Hongzhuang the most. Even if she had to spend the rest of her life, she would drag Bailey Hongzhuang down to hell. She wanted Bailey Hongzhuang to experience the feeling of losing a loved one. Last time Lan Yunxiao managed to escape, but he wouldn't be so lucky again. One day she would kill everyone that Bailey Hongzhuang cared about and leave her with nothing. Didn't you say that the people sent by the D family are also very strong? Last time you almost died in their hands. Shi was a little worried. He knew that Xiao Sou was becoming more and more paranoid. Hatred had already clouded her heart. The D family still has a few people who are good at fighting. Xiao Sou frowned slightly. Di Xiaofeng's strength has also become very strong. This was what she didn't understand the most. Her strength had only improved greatly after coming to the crossing immortal domain. This was because the origin energy here was much denser and the laws of heaven and earth were much more complete. Cultivating in this environment would allow one to improve much faster than cultivating in the upper realm. She had always understood Di Xiaofeng's strength. Logically speaking, after such a long time of hard work, she should have already left Di Xiaofeng behind. However, the last time they met, she found that Di Xiaofeng's strength was not inferior to hers. This was the strangest part. Sister, could it be that the D family has also found a way to go to other planes? After a few years of change, Xiao Sudong had lost his initial childishness. His figure had become tall and strong, and his temperament had become more stable. How is this possible? Xiao Sou retorted without hesitation. They don't have that ability at all. Master has been in contact with the crossing immortal domain for so many years, but the D family doesn't know anything about it. Even if they do ascend, they will only come to the crossing immortal region. They will definitely be captured and forced to mine. We don't even have to do anything, they will turn into idiots. Shu Yu could not help but nod when he heard this. Perhaps his worries were unnecessary. No matter how the D clan thought about it, they would never think that they were not even on the same plane. No matter how hard they searched, they would never be able to find them. In short, it's best if you don't go to the upper realm as often as possible. Right now, the most important thing is to improve your cultivation, Shu Yu advised. I know, Xiao Sou said impatiently. Seeing this, Shu Yu shook his head. He knew that Xiao Sou would not listen to him at all. His only hope was Xiao Sudong. Master, will we be able to enter the immortal region after breaking through to the elementary immortal stage? Xiao Sou could not help but ask. She knew that Qing Devil was from the immortal realm. All this time, she had been hoping that Qing Devil might have already returned to the immortal region. As long as she could go to the immortal region, she would have a chance to meet Qing Devil. That's right. Shu Yu nodded. Only cultivators in the elementary immortal stage can enter the immortal region. But my strength hasn't improved recently. Xiao Sou frowned. She thought that she had spent a lot of time on cultivation, but her cultivation had not improved at all. This made her very unhappy. Shu Yu glanced at Xiao Sou but didn't say anything. With her slack cultivation method, it was indeed very difficult for her to make a breakthrough. It's difficult to break through to the elementary immortal stage. Once you break through, you will become an immortal. Naturally, you will need to spend more time and energy. Chapter 72-75. During this month, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had an exceptionally peaceful time. Ever since Imperial Returning Restaurant launched a new dish, its business had been getting better and better. Now even Rutesi brothel was no match for it. Almost every day when it was mealtime, the entire restaurant would be packed with people. Gong Jun was all smiles every day, counting the money he had earned at night. On this day, Di Baichen and Li Chia were having their meal at the returning Qin restaurant. Suddenly, a familiar figure appeared before them. Looking at the man who suddenly appeared, Bailey Hongzhuang was surprised for a moment. "You are Qin Yangyi's manservant." The man nodded. "Young master said that he has found the person you asked him to help you find. I'll leave this to you." Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly startled and took the letter. Only more than half of the 1 month had passed. Qin Yangyi's news came so quickly, which was beyond their expectations. He opened the letter and saw an address written on it. "Young master said that as long as you go there, you will find the person you are looking for." So fast? Gong Jun couldn't help but come over. Could there be a mistake? Our young master's information has always been accurate. There is absolutely no problem. The manservant raised his head proudly and said in a firm tone, "Thank you very much." Di Baichen put away the letter and said, "Please tell him that we will pay him a visit after we solve the problem. Farewell, young master." After the servant left, Di Xiaofeng and the others rushed over and gathered together. Is this guy really that powerful? Ziren was in disbelief. So many of them had been searching for so long without any results, but this guy had only used such a short amount of time to give a definite answer. That's what he's best at. Of course we can't compare. Linger's voice was as cold as ever. "Boss, why are you still going to look for this guy when the time comes?" Gong Jun also heard Di Baichen's words and couldn't help but ask. If this news is true, then it proves that there's almost nothing in the crossing immortal region that he can't find out. Xiao Shou is the problem we need to solve the most right now. Other than her, we also need to understand the situation in crossing immortal domain. Instead of beating around the bush to get information from Huang Tiangui, it would be better to ask him directly. Hearing this, everyone nodded slightly. Right now they did not know much about the situation. If they could understand everything clearly, it would undoubtedly be for the best. "So, we're going to be ripped off again?" Gong Jun couldn't help but ask. "Di Baichen, I remember you guys saying that this guy's 300 high-grade devouring spirit stones was the discounted price. I'm afraid there won't be such a discount next time." Ziren's expression became somewhat indescribable. He patted Gong Jun's shoulder and said, "Make money well. I'll leave this task to you." "Gong Jun, I'll go." That day Di Baichen and Bailey Hongzhuang left for the location stated in the letter after explaining the matters of the mine. Di Xiaofeng and the others naturally went with them. Xiao Shou was undoubtedly their common enemy. Now that they finally found her whereabouts, they naturally couldn't miss out on this opportunity. Gong Jun also wanted to follow, but Ziren and the others sent him to guard returning Qin Tower. As the shopkeeper, if he left and something happened, returning Qin Tower's people wouldn't be able to handle it. Chapter 72-76. You've left me behind again? Gong Jun stood at the door and looked at the departing figures of the crowd. His face was full of indignation. Last time these fellows had abandoned him just like that. Now they actually did it again. Wasn't it just because he couldn't take the restaurant away? Ah, I see Gong Jun's gloomy look. It's as if he wants to spit out a mouthful of blood. Ziren could not help but laugh out loud. This guy was really too interesting. Stop laughing at Gong Jun. Shangguan Yingying shook her head helplessly. If Gong Jun loses his temper, you won't be able to stop him. Don't worry, we have Baichen. Ziren smirked. Baichen was like a shield. If you continue to cause trouble for him, I won't protect you, Di Baichen suddenly said. Ziren's face fell. Don't be like this. Gong Jun can make money? What can you do? Shangguan Yingying said disdainfully. I can eat. After several days of traveling, they finally arrived at the location mentioned in the letter. It's the courtyard in front. Di Baichen looked at the inconspicuous courtyard in front of him, and his eyes became sharp and cold. Everyone's footsteps unconsciously stopped as their gazes locked onto the courtyard. Their emotions became rather complicated. Hopefully, they weren't mistaken. Bai Lian-che stepped forward and knocked on the door of the courtyard. Hearing the commotion outside the door, Xiao Shou was a little puzzled. They had never interacted with other people, so logically speaking, no one would come looking for them. Who is it? Almost at the moment when they heard this voice, the eyes of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others narrowed. Even though they hadn't seen Xiao Shou for a long time, when they heard this voice, they immediately recognized that this person was Xiao Shou. It was true. Everyone looked at each other. Qin Yangyi really didn't disappoint them. Di Xiaofeng's lips curled up. It seems that the 300 high-grade blood spirit stones were well spent. Xiao Shou found that there was no answer from the outside, but the knocking did not stop. She felt a little strange. She didn't think too much about it. Instead, she opened the door to the courtyard. No one would look for them in the crossing immortal domain. However, when she opened the door and saw the familiar face, her expression changed. "You, why are you here? Miss Xiao, you really made us look for you." Di Xiaofeng sneered as he looked around the courtyard. Perhaps Shu Yu and the others were also here. Xiao Sou's face turned pale as countless thoughts flashed through her mind. She was clearly unable to believe that she would actually meet Di Beichen and the others in the crossing immortal domain. "Now it's time for us to settle the score." Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were cold as she stared at Xiao Sou. Last time, Xiao Sou had taken the opportunity to escape. This time she would not let that happen again. "Bailey Hongzhuang, if it weren't for the Di family's background, what right do you have to challenge me?" Xiao Sou's eyes were filled with hatred. From her point of view, Bailey Hongzhuang had stolen everything from her. Di Beichen was originally her fiancé. If Bailey Hongzhuang had not appeared, this handsome and outstanding man would have treated her like a treasure. He would not be like this now with only disgust in his eyes. So what? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her beautiful eyebrows. Her delicate face now exuded a jade-like luster. Her radiance was shining, and her beauty was indescribable. Chapter 72-77. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't refute, she was too lazy to refute. She didn't want to say that even without the Di family, Xiao Sou was still no match for her. Because no matter what the woman in front of her said, it was useless. She only believed in her own imagination. Sure enough, the provocation after the admission angered Xiao Sou even more. She didn't expect this woman to be shameless to this extent. Shengguan Yingying and Linger both had a look of admiration. Sure enough, Hongzhuang's move was ruthless enough. "You are simply shameless. Compared to you, I'm not worthy." Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was neither salty nor light. At the same time, Xiao Sudong and Shu Yu couldn't help but come out after hearing the movement outside. So what happened? However, when the two of them came out and saw the familiar figures in the courtyard, their expressions changed drastically. Shu Yu's heart jumped. He finally understood the origin of his previous uneasiness. The problem actually appeared here. "Sure enough, you are all here." Di Beichen's biting cold and sharp eyes swept over the three people, and the three people who were looked at couldn't help but tremble. "Di Beichen, you are really amazing. You can actually chase us here." Xiao Sudong took a step forward. His dark eyes met Di Beichen's eyes, his handsome face showed no signs of backing down. "If I don't appear here, do you expect me to wait for your sneak attacks every time?" Di Beichen laughed in a low voice, revealing a bloodthirsty taste. Xiao Sudong was speechless. Xiao Sou had indeed been thinking of ways to attack the Di family every few days, but he didn't expect Di Beichen to have the ability to chase them here. "Hand over the secret key." The biting cold voice was sharp and decisive, like a judge, exuding an undeniable meaning. In a split second, Xiao Sou only felt a strong and cold aura enveloping her, causing her to feel a chill from the bottom of her heart. She unconsciously took a step back. After not seeing him for a while, this man's aura had become even stronger. His sharp gaze seemed to be able to subdue people without a fight. "Why should I give it to you? If you hand it over to me now, I can still let you die a quick death." Di Beichen's voice was cold, without the slightest bit of pity. Xiao Sou's expression froze, and hatred burst out from the bottom of her eyes. This man would only show his gentle and doting side to Bailey Hongzhuang, but for other women, there was only sternness. "Then let's see which of us is stronger." Xiao Sou looked up with disdain, hatred surging in her eyes. She would definitely avenge her clan's extermination. Xiao Sudong also stood up and looked at Xiao Sou. "Let me deal with him." Xiao Sou nodded. Xiao Sudong had been cultivating diligently during this time, and with Shu Yu's careful nurturing, his strength had increased a lot and had already surpassed her. Standing in front of Di Beichen, Xiao Sudong coldly stared at him. "How about we fight one-on-one?" Di Beichen looked up indifferently. "As you wish." Di Xiaofeng and the others did not stop this. In their opinion, even if Xiao Sudong had a good opportunity during this time, it was impossible for him to be compared to Di Beichen. At the same time, Xiao Sou also came in front of Bailey Hongzhuang. "Do you dare to fight with me?" Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. "Why not? I'm afraid you will regret it." You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.